you're an artist, or you're a, I don't know, construction worker, or you're a barista, or like whatever you are. It's like you're so much more than just your occupation. And I think obviously our set of experiences in our life and our family of origin and all these things contribute to making us who we are and how we experience the world and what we do and what drives us. And people are just fascinating.
Hi, my name is Dr. Armin Khonsari, and this is the Onaging podcast. Here I explore answers to the question how to create a good life. Join me as I talk to experts in the fields of longevity and health, along with practitioners, individuals who have discovered their unique vision of a fulfilling life. In this episode, I'm thrilled to introduce my guest, Dr. Julie Fratantoni, cognitive neuroscientist and researcher at the University of Texas. Dr. Fratantoni is a true expert in brain health and longevity, helping people proactively improve their brain health. She has leading roles in several studies and research initiatives, including the BrainHealth Project, a 10-year study aimed at improving the brain health across lifespan, and the Kindness Enterprise, which explores the brain's capacity for compassion as a crucial component of overall brain health. In her newsletter, Better Brain, at drjuliefratantoni.substack.com, she shares practical tips on brain health and longevity. I learned a lot from my conversation with Julie, and I'm sure you will too. So now, without further ado, enjoy the interview with Dr. Julie Fratantoni. Okay, welcome, Julie, Dr. Julie Fratantoni. I'm really happy to have you here on the Onaging podcast, and I hope you're doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Great. So you're a neuroscientist with a PhD. So, and as I recall, you also have a strong spiritual side. And my first question, I want to go a little bit into the story behind it, I guess. But first, just a simple question. Can you believe in God as a scientist?
I think so. Because I guess I'm a scientist and I believe in God. So there you have it.
Okay, that's proof, I guess. So
I'm an N of one, but one exists.
N of one, yeah, at least one, a proof of concept somehow. So as I said, I like to start the conversation with experience you had in your life when you were 24. Maybe you can just jump into it, and it's related basically also to your spiritual side. So
Sure. 24 was a big year for me. That was the year that I decided to actually start my PhD or pursue a PhD in cognitive neuroscience. It was also the same year that I did my certification for yoga teacher training. And it was also the year that I became a new believer, a Christian. And so I had really explosive, transformative growth, really spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And the way that all of those different components fit together has really, I guess, given me a very holistic view of kind of, for myself, my health journey and kind of overall wellness. So I'm happy to dive more into any of those if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. But first of all, you told me like about a friend at this time that actually were the reason you started to believe like into God, as I understand. So
actually,
I think, yes.
Yeah, that was actually in high school. So just in terms of my faith journey, I did not grow up, having a particularly strong faith or really belief in God at all. And part of my story, kind of just that journey, I had a friend in high school that had got a brain tumor and passed away when she was like 16. And so being very young and having, I guess, just an immature or a lack of understanding or knowledge of a faith or God or any of those things to really kind of anchor me. And I wasn't really even interested in having them. But that experience really made me question if there was a God, or kind of just presented the problem of evil, of like, why would bad things happen to good people? So I would say that was an interesting point kind of along my spiritual formation or journey, in just really asking those deeper questions, like as a teenager, of, why would this happen? And created a lot of doubt, actually. So I feel like that was sort of an event that I guess distanced me from an idea of a God, or if there was a God, if he was good or could be trusted. And then, yeah, fast forward to being 24 and getting ready to, I guess I was just finishing up my master's degree and kind of had a season of uncertainty. And then, yeah, just had a friend that had kind of encouraged me to, I read a book, and it just kind of opened up my mind to see, and I'm not doing, I would say at that time at 24, I was going through a lot. Like, it was the first time that I sort of realized that I couldn't, just how not in control we are over things. And I think up to that point, I had felt very in control. I felt like, I can do A plus B and get C, and I can do this formula. And it was very much, if I put in the work, then I will get the things I want. And so I think for the first time, really seeing that is not exactly how the world works. It's not necessarily linear and doesn't always make sense to us. But just recognizing my own shortcomings and my own just need for God was really kind of what had opened my eyes to have a desire to grow spiritually, or to have a relationship with God. And that was kind of where that exploration began.
Yes, thank you. So you were like 24, and you, as I understand, you started both. Like, you started to your spiritual side, but also your PhD. Is that correct?
That's
So,
right.
I think that's a really interesting part. So if you look into history of science, like some big scientists in the past were also believed in God. Some didn't, but also some did. So I think there's always this question between is it compatible, science and faith? So I really like to dig a little bit deeper, and yeah, how you feel about that, and how you basically combine both parts of you in your life,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to get to talk about this. So thank you for asking. You know, to me, I guess having the beliefs that I do, or just even because my mind was like very open and being formed, both as a scientist and then also as a Christian. So I was like learning and, I guess, reading the Bible for the first time, and then also, you know, diving deeper into practicing the scientific method and understanding the literature around these different ways that the brain operates. And I guess from my experience, I felt like I really just saw a lot of principles that are biblical, in terms of like needing community or practicing gratitude, or, these ideas of needing love or forgiveness and grace and compassion, and kind of these things that then, to be able to see on the science side of how those elements affect the brain positively, how it helps development, how it increases things like, connections in certain networks, or increases volume in certain areas of the brain. I mean, it's just really beautiful how these things that are, I would see as part of God's design for human flourishing, are then really, science is kind of catching up with that and showing like, social connection is really important, like living in community is important, having people that you can count on, and then kind of when the things that we're seeing now with kind of the mental health crisis and loneliness, and anyway, so it's just, it's kind of, in my world, really neat to see, I guess, science catching up to these principles and ideas that have been around for a very long time, and to be able to show, I guess, the more objective evidence in terms of how this affects your brain chemistry, your neurotransmitters, how it's affecting your immune system, and specifically like natural killer cells or T cells, or, allowing you to fight off disease faster. Just all of these different elements from the physical body that align with kind of practicing or living in these certain ways. So I think that's been something that's been really, I guess, just encouraging or neat to have kind of both of my worlds intersect in that way. And I think it's also kind of fun because, when people, I love this idea, or not this idea. I think it's really important as we meet and interact with other people to recognize that everyone is multifaceted, right? And so just because you do something as a profession, or you have one job, or you have a certain set of beliefs, or, you're an artist, or you're a, I don't know, construction worker, or you're a barista, or like whatever you are, it's like you're so much more than just your occupation. And I think, obviously, our set of experiences and our life and our family of origin and all these things contribute to making us who we are and how we experience the world and what we do and what drives us. And people are just fascinating. But I think one thing, when people meet you, and I would actually like to hear your perspective on this too, because at least in the US, I feel like it's very much, we find our identity very much in what we do. So it's like one of the first questions you ask people when you meet them is like, oh, what is your profession, or what do you do? And then you kind of pigeonhole them into that box. And so that's something I really push back against when I meet people. I sometimes don't necessarily like to introduce my profession right away, because I feel like there are so many other parts of me that affect my worldview and how I'm going to make decisions and how I interact or live my life beyond just being, my day job of doing research and science. And so, yeah, just to remind people, I guess, of just how multifaceted we are, and to not kind of stop there, but to recognize just all these different elements to a person. And I think something I really push back against is being kind of stuck in any just one single box.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's the same probably all over the world, I guess. I think even so let me just start with Europe, because I'm from Europe. So it's the same when you like enter a party, and that was actually also before when I studied. So what kind of field are you studying? And you will always put into a box, okay? Because I studied with physics first, and that's like the most nerdiest field to study. Like, so when you talk like to a physician or something, you're like, okay, you're a physicist, right? Uh, so I started to actually, as you said, when I was on parties, like in college, or university, I actually refused. I said, like, let's talk about something else. So where did you go, like, for your last vacations, like for your last trip? Where did you travel to? Something like that. So that would be still fun, but would get you out. So yeah, I totally understand this part. I agree. And I guess it depends on the type of person, actually, or the type of community you're surrounded by. So the typical 9 to 5 people are usually thinking this way, I guess, like from my experience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I know some cultures that really value more of the community aspect, or like family. So it's like, oh, tell me about your family, as opposed like seeing more of whereas I know the US is so individualistic. So it's just interesting to see culturally how, what we value, what we ask, what are the first questions that come to mind.
Right. But so I was in Vietnam just like a couple like last month, I guess. And I think so. I talked to the people there a little bit, like in English, of course. I don't know Vietnamese, but I experienced that even like in other countries where supposedly like community is really strong there. There's still occupation is really important, because you support the family,
Mhm.
right? You support the community. And they
Yeah.
don't have something like, or most people don't care about hobbies or that kind of stuff, as I understood it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a big part of well-being is recognizing that you are more than what you do. And so when you think about like having a good life, I think that's an important piece of knowing that like I am more than just my output or my work product. And I think that's something that's hard to get away from when, like I said, we're finding our identity there, or it is it's how we're spending the majority of our time. It's kind of how we associate ourselves when we meet people. But anyway, it's something I was thinking about recently.
uh, totally. I agree. I think even but I think we're going to go on more deeper in the more scientific part. I like to ask you about the science behind some of the things we just talked about. But just to keep to stay here so we talked about faith, and I would like just to know do you basically, as I understand it, you somehow support what you ideas or notions that you get from your religion, and you like to back them up with science. Is that correct, or is that am I going in the wrong direction?
I think that. So yeah, I think that there's an element of faith that requires faith. That there are things that we can't see and measure and touch, but there are things that are like these experiences that are supernatural, or that we can't explain, or that science actually physically can't measure yet. Maybe one day we will. So I think there's kind of that component of it. And then there is the component, kind of like I was saying earlier, of principles that I want to live by, that I believe are the way that God has designed for the most human thriving and flourishing. And those things, I think it's been nice to see the scientific evidence that also supports that, or is in alignment with human well-being and health. So yeah, I think it's interesting because it's not like I, was like, okay, show me the scientific evidence and then I'll believe. It was like, and I know that you have to be careful with that too, because we all have implicit bias, and we're all looking for things to just, we're looking for the evidence that supports our beliefs, and we can tend to ignore the things that maybe contradict it or don't. But yeah, I think that there is a lot of science to it, but I wouldn't say that that's I guess what caused me to believe. But it's nice being able to exist in both worlds.
Okay. Sure. So would you say that because there are some practices like acupuncture, for example, or I think also meditation, that used to have a really bad image in the scientific world, I would say, even in the direction of being scam, and that nowadays, I think you're the expert in this. You can back it up or not, but I think acupuncture, at least, and also meditation is somehow supported by science nowadays, that it even is used, for example, for pain, as a pain medication, or both, actually. Yeah. So my question here is, how do you so first of all, are there personally, are there any tools, methods, or practices that you use that you think that are correct, but and you use it, that's a reason, but they're not supported by science yet, or not 100% proved?
Yeah, I think acupuncture is a great one. That has been used for centuries, and Chinese herbs and kind of this more Eastern medicine, that just because we don't have a ton of peer-reviewed scientific articles written about them doesn't mean that it doesn't work, and it's unfortunate. The things that insurance covers or doesn't cover, or even the kind of the agenda of what gets grant funding are the things that then get papers written. And so just kind of a different mindset. And so there's no surprise that there's endless, I guess, budget for pharma companies, and they're able to do the research and write the papers. And so there's tons of papers on that type of intervention, as opposed to something like an acupuncture or, muscle testing or some of these more functional approaches that I've found to be really effective in my own healing journey for different aspects of health. Meditation or mindfulness is one that has been widely studied in the literature now, just over the last decade plus. The number of peer-reviewed papers has exploded, which is fantastic, just showing the benefits of mindfulness for everything from, like you said, pain management to focus to mood to just better sleep. I mean, there are so many benefits to that. So it's really been nice to see, I guess, the literature again support something that has intuitively been working for a lot of people for a long time. And so I think, to kind of understand that there is a gold standard for science, and you want to have a filter and a grid, and it's really important to, when it comes to your health or when it comes to making decisions about how you're going to invest your time or your money, you want to make sure that you're not being scammed or that you're not, wasting your time or doing something that isn't going to work. But also holding that with knowing that, like I said, not everything has been studied yet in that way, measured in that way. And so it really takes a lot, I think, to kind of discern what's out there. And I think that that's a big issue that people are facing. And it's something that I'm passionate about helping people do, of like teasing apart, like what is pseudoscience, what is, scientifically backed. I think that that's a big, kind of similar to how you've seen, the term greenwashing of like kind of marketing that makes it look like it's more eco-friendly or healthier. Similarly, I think we're seeing a lot of products that are now saying like science backed, or like that they have some scientific claims that go with it, but really may not be super solid evidence. And so I think helping people to be a citizen scientist, right, to have kind of a grid to evaluate these things is really important, because there's some really compelling marketing, but a lot of marketing, or like supplements, for example, that aren't regulated by the FDA, they can make any claims they want and they don't have to have any data to support it. So I think there's some really dangerous territory there when it comes to people that stand to profit from some of those things. And, and I believe that there are plenty of companies that are doing good by that as well. So it's not to say that it's all bad by any means, but I just think having, being able to have the skills to think about these things in that way and not just, I don't know, or be overwhelmed by it, I think is something I hear from people a lot.
So how would you advise someone who is not a scientist or doesn't have a scientific background? What is actually pseudoscience and what is science? And I think even like thinking more practical, because from my experience, most non-scientists are not really interested in the science itself. They are interested in the practical applications. So what would you like, let's say we have, I don't know, like some new supplement, for example. How would you, because you talked about it, so how would you advise someone to approach it? Is it good for me or not? Is it backed by science or not?
Yeah. So the first thing you want to look for is third-party testing. Just to make sure that it's going to verify. Third-party testing basically says that they verify that what the bottle says it contains, it actually contains. So it's a form of quality control, which is great, because as it is, things can contain extra things that they don't put on the bottle, or it can contain like lower quantities of what you think you're getting. So third-party testing is a really good one to look for. You want to look for peer-reviewed scientific studies on their website. So notice if they have any references. If they do, they should be easy to find. And while you may not be able to fully understand what the articles say, there's a resource for that. It's called SciSpace, and it's basically an AI tool, but essentially you can either put specific papers in there, or you can do a search on like a particular supplement. You may not be able to get like the specific brand, but at least say you're interested in taking, I don't know, say magnesium or something like that. And you can put in and say magnesium, benefits for, say, sleep or whatever you're wanting are interested in taking that supplement for. And you can actually it will summarize the scientific articles for you in a really easy to understand paragraph or a sentence, which is really nice. So it's making a way for non-scientists to kind of weed through the jargon and be able to kind of get to the essence of some of these peer-reviewed research studies, which is really great. But again, that's more just researching, I guess, the specific element that would be in that supplement. But to be able to know about that specific company, and then just knowing that supplements affect everyone differently because of bio-individuality. And so making sure that that's going to work with your system, and really being a scientist of your own body, and just knowing that if you take something, like, notice how it's making you feel and try to change only one variable at a time, so that you can notice if it is helping or if it's not agreeing with you, and paying attention to, like, are you having a headache after, or like, really listening to your body, because there's something. So I actually, my acupuncturist, I will do muscle testing with him before I take any new supplements. And some just like, it turns out like you can be allergic to certain supplements, not necessarily the key ingredient, but just that particular brand or the way it's manufactured. There may be something that just doesn't work with your system. So that's something that I like to do. I recognize not everyone maybe has access to that, but I think those are some good first steps, at least, to start to evaluate if you are going to do that. And then, of course, always, always, always talk with your medical doctor or your primary care physician if you're going to make any changes, just so that they're on board and helping you navigate. They can help you navigate that as well.
So you mentioned muscle testing a couple of times. So could you just briefly explain for someone who doesn't know what it is?
Yeah, muscle testing is basically, and this is one that I don't know that really there's a lot of literature on it. So, but I can just say that objectively it is.
But sorry, it's something that you personally. Sorry, it's something that you personally.
Yeah, it's more of a
practice.
Yeah, so basically, you need someone else to do it. I think my acupuncturist will do it, but essentially, like, you just kind of hold the supplement or whatever it is, or food. Like, you can do this for food allergies or sensitivities as well. And essentially, they just kind of like will press on your arm, and you try to hold your arm out strong. And if they're able to press your arm down, like if your muscle is like weak, then it's something like not agreeing with you. Whereas if your arm stays strong, then it's okay. And they can also do this for dosage to figure out like how many supplements you should take. So again, this is not, not a science-backed practice. This is just one that through Eastern medicine that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah. So coming back to practices that you mentioned it there, yeah, that are not backed by science, or not that much, but that you practice. So maybe we see like in 10 or 15 years or in 20 years some proof for it. So I like to come to your expertise actually. So you're a cognitive neuroscientist, as I understand. And you talk a lot about brain health on social media, and you're really big in science communication. So my first question regarding this is, why should we actually train our brains at all? So aren't we training it by just going to school and reading a book, or what should we train?
Yeah. So you are training your brain every single day based on how you use it, the information that you consume, the books you read, the music you listen to, the news you watch, the movies, media, the social media, everything, your environment, the people you surround yourself with, your job, all of your daily routine, all of these things are training and shaping your brain. And so basically, if you don't proactively choose to train it, then it will just automatically be shaped and formed and trained by your environment and your lifestyle. So I think it's important for people to understand that every single day you're either moving, I would say, forwards or backwards, or that could be positive or negative, depending on like what your goals are and the type of person you want to be or want to become. And so you don't really ever get the luxury of just kind of staying the same, because the brain is designed to continually adapt to your environment and your lifestyle for optimal survival. And so it's either strengthening your thought patterns and behaviors. It's either going to continue to strengthen those same ones, or you're going to form new connections and strengthen new ones, depending on the types of habits and things that you want to be doing. So I think it's really important to be proactive and understand that you have so much autonomy and you really are in the driver's seat of your brain and your habits and your lifestyle. And if you are reactive instead of proactive, then you're kind of going to just be at the whim of your surroundings, as opposed to really be the one driving the direction that you want to go.
So that reminds me a little bit of, because I meditate myself like since, I don't think like 8 years now. And I think part of what I learned is exactly what you're just saying, like not being reactive, being actually, I'm not sure if it's proactive, but it's actually not reacting on your feelings that much. So that meditation helps me at least with that. And so I went to, so that's a little bit my personal story. So I started meditation actually at the end of my PhD. So it was like a really tough time, and I somehow encountered it and started doing it. And then a friend of mine, he did a PhD in philosophy, like different field, but we were like friends, and he started also doing it. And we went together to a retreat. That was like just a weekend. That was my first time. So I'm not really spiritual. So that was like a Buddhist retreat, but he told me like, just come with us and then just check it out and just be open-minded. That's what he told me. And there was one type of meditation that I encountered there that I tried out, which was called, I'm not sure if I pronounce it correctly, it was Metta Bhavana or something like this in the direction, which... Oh, you don't know it. But I think it goes like into the direction of kindness, compassion-based meditation. So we had like 3 levels. So we had to focus first on ourselves, and then get like just on the feelings or in the picture, and then go like to the next phase where we have a good friend, someone, then the third phase, someone we don't know at all. And then going like at the end to this 4th part, someone we don't like or someone we dislike, and try to get the good feelings like toward that person. So I saw that you like in your research paper, I think it was just a recent one, in the introduction, I just went a little bit through it, that you were like, that was really nicely written actually, about talking about a kindness and compassion based meditation practice. And so I like to like hear from you. So what actually are the benefits? What's the scientific proof or for it? And yeah, maybe you can just explain a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, yes. I wasn't familiar with the term that you used, but loving kindness meditation is a really beautiful practice. And you're right, it kind of starts inward and you extend the circle outward to like eventually, right, all living things or someone that's maybe harder to extend that compassion to. And it's a wonderful practice. And I would say that the majority, when I was doing my literature review, a lot of the kindness research has kind of used that as a way of getting at, facilitating kindness or I guess actions or thoughts or feelings around kindness. So that one's really kind of well studied, which is great. And I think, so in terms of sort of the brain benefits for kindness, and I'll say kindness, compassion, empathy, they're all 3 different things. But I feel like when it comes to pro-social behaviors, so kind behaviors towards other people, that they share some similarities. Even like curiosity is kind of mixed in there too, of like this openness towards other people or a moving towards other people. And so I think what's really nice about this, and then like self-compassion, like you said, it has to, being able to kind of practice that towards yourself. Although I will say, I think, sorry, let me back up. Your question is, what are sort of the benefits of practicing kindness? And so from the science, we see that people, so I'm going to group this together with pro-social behaviors, but we see people live longer, so longer life. We see less depression and anxiety. We see improved cardiovascular function and improved immune system, so boost natural killer cells or T cells. Like people recover from colds faster. There's, they sleep better. So just there's really incredible just overall benefits, and we can feel it pretty immediately, like when someone does something kind for you, or it can be very small, but it makes a difference. And not only is it beneficial for the person that receives the kind act, but it actually is even more beneficial for the person doing the kind act. So there was one study where they took employees, I think at a Coca-Cola factory, and they had like half of the employees, they were supposed to be kind of like undercover, like do kind acts for people, but like nobody knew that they were doing it. And so they did the kind acts, and then they rated overall levels of like life satisfaction and happiness. And basically what they found was that the people that received a kind act, they paid it forward. They then went on and did other kind acts for people. But the ones that did the kind acts, their levels of happiness and satisfaction with their job and life increased by, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was high. It was like 200, it was some 200 something percent. Like it was a huge increase in just life happiness and satisfaction. And so I think, people are always on the quest for happiness or what makes a good life. And it's like, it's actually very simple. It doesn't need to be anything big, but simply expressing kindness can be really huge. And then being aware of that kindness. There was another study that had people just keep a log of the kind acts that they did each week. And they saw that just that awareness of that tracking increased they reported higher levels of happiness as well. So some really great studies.
So definitely so if you're striving for longevity, that's something to learn, to be kind. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so what? I think gratitude is also, maybe you haven't mentioned it, but I think also belongs to this field of is it called emotions, or emotions that are helpful?
Yeah. Yes. Gratitude, absolutely. Gratitude's a really neat one because it it changes your mindset for how you actually view your experiences in the world, which is really neat. Gratitude acts, many people are familiar with the way that physical exercise can change your brain chemistry and give you these happy endorphins. But gratitude actually can do the same thing. So practicing gratitude can boost things like serotonin and dopamine and these feelings of well-being, which is amazing because it's like you don't even have to move, just with your thoughts. Just thinking about the things that you're grateful for can help change your mind, can help create those neurochemical changes, but also then it changes the filter through which you're experiencing your life, which is really important.
So just coming back like to recommendations for people, so how would you recommend someone who hasn't done anything like meditation or even like gratitude practice, how to start? So what's the best way to start?
Yeah. So for gratitude, this is sort of a different take on gratitude, but basically you can do this very quickly. You can do this in as short as like a minute to 5 minutes, but essentially you want to think of a time that someone genuinely thanked you. So when someone actually expressed gratitude towards you or some genuine appreciation. So it could be a time that someone told you verbally, it could be that they wrote it in a thank you card. But think about that time. And then importantly, think about how it felt in your body. And kind of, I think it helps to close your eyes to do this. And in as short as, like I said, 1 to 5 minutes doing this practice of gratitude, we saw that this boosted, I think it was IL-6, which is just an immune marker. So boosts your immune system. And yeah, that's a really great, easy way to practice gratitude. One that you could do first thing in the morning. Just kind of picture that and feel it in your body. And the benefits are pretty immediate.
That's really great. So, what is your personal routine? Because I guess something like going in this direction. But what is it in general? Like, how do you start your day training your brain in a positive way? Or I'm not sure even if you can say positive way, but in the way you want to actually perceive the world, I guess.
Yeah. So I think right when you wake up is one of the most important times of the day because your mind is most open, I think, to being trained, or it feels a little more malleable. And some of that has to do with moving from those deep, slow wave brain waves of sleep as we become more awake and alert throughout the day. So as we transition from delta, slow wave, we move through theta and then alpha, and then beta is when we're like really engaged or maybe stressed or actively thinking. But that theta alpha transition is a really prime time to set intentions, practice gratitude, say affirmations, pray, kind of align yourself with what you want for your day. So when I wake up, I try to really protect the first, at least 30 minutes, if not hour of my morning by not being on my phone immediately. So that's one big one, of charging my phone in a different room and really trying not to touch it. Get an old school alarm clock so that you're not tempted to just immediately, jump on social media or email. But yeah, so protecting that time, getting morning sun, like looking out the window or getting outside and getting to see the sunrise, has some really great calming effects for the nervous system. So anytime you can view like a vista or panoramic view using your peripheral vision, that's a really great way to, again, kind of prepare your nervous system for the day that doesn't start in just like a jolt of stress and adrenaline, right? We need that to wake up, but to not be in that fight or flight state. So those kind of are two big things for me is as soon as I wake up, I sort of like, I have a little meditation cushion next to my bed, and I kind of will sit and just like either use that time to, like I said, pray, meditate, do some breath work, affirmations, gratitude. It's a little bit different each day. Sometimes I journal a little bit. And then as soon as the sun is up, or if the sun's already up, getting outside as quickly as I can to get some morning sunlight and some movement and nature and walking with my dog. That's really huge. And then I also have kind of like my physical exercise routine that I do in the morning. That's about 30 minutes. And then I recently added in, I just got a cold plunge. So I've been doing 2-minute cold plunge this week, which has been so great. But I know not everyone can do that. But you can also just turn your shower to cold at the end. And that's a really nice boost and just like helps make me feel so alert and awake for the day. And so those are some staples, and then just cooking a really yummy breakfast. But those are kind of the key components. But I would say if you were just getting started with, wanting to add one thing into your morning routine, I would say just let the first 5 minutes that you wake up choose to either sit, breathe, mindfulness, gratitude, like pick one thing and just take that 5 minutes right when you first wake up to just not be on your phone yet. And I think that will go a long way, and hopefully you will feel the benefits of that, and that will encourage you to keep doing that. And then you can add in other things.
And that's definitely, maybe I'm also picking up some stuff here. So that's really, really good advice. So we're coming to the end of our interview or conversation. So what I like to ask all my guests is, and you answered already like a lot, but maybe you can summarize it. What does living a good life mean to you personally?
Yeah. I think it involves, well, I actually, okay. So to me, I think living a good life encompasses several different components. One of them is identifying and living in alignment with your purpose, forming deep, meaningful relationships, feeling contentment and gratitude, like really feeling like you have enough, um, not being in a hurry and having autonomy over your time, living in harmony and in connection with nature, having health and well-being, prioritizing that, um, having joy that is not determined by your circumstances, and having perspective about what matters and not sweating the small stuff.
I can really sign the time part. So having not enough time is, or actually having enough time is really a luxury sometimes. So I totally agree with this.
Mm-hmm.
And also my second question, which I like to ask people, are there any books or movies that had a big impact on how you think? Or for example, what you just told us about creating a good life that you would recommend?
Yeah. Well, the Bible, I think, regardless of if you believe or not, I think is full of wisdom that is applicable. And then I really love this book. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I think it's really transformed my perspective on the importance of rest. And I think something we see in our culture is like, I've heard it called hurry sickness. Like it's like just
Yeah.
this state of being in a hurry of like, even when like, you're eating in your car and it's in between meetings and while you're on a meeting, and like just these things that are not helpful for our body to be constantly just like rushed. And so being booked back to back and a busy schedule. And I think that it's one thing that at least American culture really applauds and prides itself on. And it's really not good for our health. And so I really enjoyed that book, and it really challenged me to slow down and to be okay with silence and stillness and solitude, and what these kind of creating rhythms in life for rest. Really love that. And I think everyone can benefit from practicing that.
And my last question is, what are your current goals and projects that you're working right now? So what brings the future actually? Is there anything? Yeah, and
Yeah, well,
additionally also, sorry, and additionally maybe also, how can people find your work?
yeah. So currently I am working on a 10-year longitudinal study that is looking to measure, define, and improve brain health across the lifespan. So, this is an online virtual platform where participants can access online cognitive training, coaching, and assessments called the Brain Health Index. So, it's called the Brain Health Project. You can find out more about it at thebrainhealthproject.org. That's through my work at the Center for Brain Health at UT Dallas. And then personally, I have a newsletter that's on Substack that goes out once a week, that is just fun brain tips and science and things that I'm learning and using in my own life. And people can find me on Instagram at Dr. Julie Fratantoni, or I also have a website, which is just drjuliefratantoni.com.
And we will put everything then in the show notes, so for people who want to look it up. Thanks a lot, Julie. That was a great conversation. I learned a lot. I hope we might have, because there are so many other questions I had that we couldn't cover. Maybe we can have like a second part sometime. And yeah, I wish you all the best for the future. And thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of Onaging. I hope you found it valuable. As always, you find all the links below the video or in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, liking the video, or leaving a comment. To stay updated, you can follow me on all major social media platforms at Dr. Armin Khonsari. There is plenty more on longevity, health, and aging. Thank you, and see you next time.